guys, it's Amy at Zoe Beck, and I'm going to do a ranking of Jane Austen's novels. Now, I've never actually done this, I don't think. If I have, it's been years and I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure I haven't. Every year I think I'm going to do it and I just haven't got around to it. I keep thinking, well, I need to reread some of them. And I've just kind of gone, hey, you know what? I should just get the video now and just do it. I just want to have it out there. I think it's interesting to read the reasons why certain people like certain of her books. Jane Austen is one of my favorite authors. There's, again, several books that are my favorites of all time. And the rest of her books, I can at least acknowledge how good they are. They may not be personal favorites, but I do want to talk about these. So I'm just going to talk about the main 6 novels. I'm not going to count Lady Susan in here, as much as I think that's fun and just delightful. It's not the same because it's shorter and it's written in letters and things. It's just different. And so I'm not going to count it as, again, one of her main 6, because these were the ones that were published in her lifetime and a little bit after, after she passed away. So again, as I said, Jane Austen is one of my favorite authors. I did write my my college paper on her to finish out my English degree. Not that I remember what I wrote on. I mean, I remember what I wrote about, as in who I wrote about, but not... I don't remember the paper. I don't have any. If I have the copy of it, I've lost it. Anyway, we don't need to know what my theories were or anything, because I'm going to go my ranking from the bottom to my favorite of all time, which I don't think it's any surprise if you guys have watched my channel at all. But but the lower ranking is where I wasn't sure, and then this year I made a decision, because I did read one of the ones I consider not one of my favorites. So the very bottom one is because of the paper I wrote in college, which I wish I could remember what my what my paper was about. I have blocked it out so much because I had to read this book several times in that one semester to write that paper, so I could get enough credits to finish college, because I was ready to get out. And that is Emma. Emma has never been my favorite. I was always worried about it when I first heard about it. And again, in college, I had to read it. I think I read it 2 to 3 times, the third time might not have been all the way through. It was probably just partials of the book to write that paper. But I read it first for a college course, and then I read it a second time. And then, as I said, probably skimmed certain parts of it again for the paper I had to write. And, this is just not my favorite, and it never will be because of that paper. And I feel kind of bad about this because my advisor loved this book. And again, I know a lot of people love this book. This is their favorite, and I understand to a point, except that, again, it comes down to, I guess it's just Emma. Emma was my problem. Like, I liked several of the other characters. Again, I liked Mr. Knightley and stuff like that. It's just... it was just Emma, just her being, let's see the kitty. Anyway, sorry. She just drove me crazy. Just because I know she was trying to be good and stuff, and then she just messed up. And again, it was just, I really think it's because of that paper. I have never revisited this, and it's been years since I graduated from college and wrote that paper. I do want to reread this at some point. I'm just still not ready. I know that sounds funny after decades. And someday I might revisit this. But at this point, this is still my lowest rated of the Jane Austen novels. Again, I think it's partly because of college, but whatever. Coming in at number 5 is Northanger Abbey. So this one, again, she wrote between writing some of the other novels, but this one she decided not to publish, but her family published it after her death. And it is a satire on Gothic novels. I just reread it this year. I didn't reread it in the right way. Again, I picked a audio that was free on Audible Plus that had a cast audio. And so it wasn't like word for word the novel. It was a dramatization kind of thing. And it was good, but I guess I just don't like audiobooks that way. So next time I read this, maybe this will jump in the rankings. But right now, I would say it's still one of my least favorite of the Jane Austen novels, just because it's written differently. There is some good humor in here. I really do like it. I do like the talking about the Gothic novels and how the young protagonist it is Catherine, right? Yeah. And how she gets confused, or, you know, sees everything so sinisterly when she gets to Northanger Abbey. There are good parts of this. Overall, it just is not a favorite. Even though I love reading Gothic fiction. So I don't know. I think it's mostly because it's the satire part of it. But, so anyway, that one's still ranked at 5. At number 4 is Mansfield Park by, so this is one, again, I have not reread in years. I have a feeling I reread this. I read it in college, and then I think I read it one other time in my 20s, late 20s, I think. I don't know why I picked it up at that time. So I haven't picked it up in quite a few years, a couple decades. Anyway, so this is one I want to reread, as well. I mean, Emma's really, really low on the list of rereads, but Mansfield Park, I feel like there were parts of it I liked. I didn't love this as much as some of the other ones, of course, because it's at the spot number 4. But I did enjoy it at the time when I read it when I was in college. And I do remember, as I said, I did pick it up and read it one other time. But I want to reread it to see where I would feel about it now, because I'm older and looking back at it and have read Austen quite often, you know, some of the other books quite a few times. I would like to read it because I think it was more subtle than I realized back then. So I would really like to revisit that one, but it still is in spot number 4. Spot number 3 is Sense and Sensibility. So this was one, again, I read in college. I read a lot of Austen in different classes, which was really funny. I mean, again, I read Emma several times for that paper, but I had read all the other novels except for Northanger Abbey, which is the only one that I read only a few years ago. It was the only one that I hadn't read in college or before. So, so I have read this one reread it several times since college. So this one, again, I really did enjoy it. I like it. I guess I like it because you can see that this was her first published novel, and you can see the changes and growth she made in her other novels. I think this was a really well put together novel overall. For your first novel published, I think she did such a great job. Again, I was definitely in the camp when I was younger of really being annoyed with Marianne. I think I still kind of am. Eleanor is still who I like the most of the two, but I think there's still a lot of stuff I can learn from this one. Like I want to reread it again, maybe in another couple years, because I read it. Did I reread it last year or the year before? One of those two. I read it just a couple years ago, you know, within the last couple years. So I do want to reread this again and get a little bit more out of it. So anyway, I really do enjoy this one. Again, I don't read it that often, but it's definitely one I have reread multiple times, at least 4 or 5, since I first read it in college. And then, again, the top 2, not going to be any, you know, I don't think these are any surprises, but number 2 is Persuasion, which again, was her last finished novel and published after her death. And I just adore this one. This is one of the only second chance romance novels that I have ever loved. There are only a few other ones that I even remotely like. I really don't like that trope, and she just does it perfectly in this one. With the way she wrote it and how things come together in the end, and just the way it happens. There's so much more to this. Again, I'm definitely of the camp that these are not just love stories. There are a lot of social commentary in all these novels in different ways and looking at different issues, especially to deal with women in this time period. I think there's so much more to Jane Austen than just the love story. But this is, as I said, one of the only second chance romance stories that I have ever enjoyed. I'm not big on them at all. But I just adore this one. It's one of my favorite short novels. It's just perfection. I think I just so devastated that, you know, this was the last one she completed, and I just think of all the stuff she could have written if she was able to, and it just hurts. But I love this novel, and definitely number 2. But I would have to say Pride and Prejudice is my number 1. Mostly because this is my favorite book of all time. And I've reread this more times than I can count. I could probably come up with most of the times I've reread this, but I reread this almost every year, every other year, just depends. Since I've been on BookTube, it's been almost every year. I just love this book. It's one of my, as I said, it's my favorite book of all time. I don't think anything is ever gonna be more to me than this book. Just there's certain things in this that hit at the right time. I read this. What is really funny about this is that I read it in high school. At the same time, I was reading a couple other classics, or I mean, you know, I was reading more modern classics for my school, and I think my teacher mentioned Pride and Prejudice that I should read, and so I did, and just loved it. But the problem is I have no memory of that except that I loved it. Like I have no, like there's this like blank. I don't remember what year it was. I don't remember how old I was. Like I know I was in high school. I mean, I can definitely pinpoint that. I think I was a junior, and so I would have been, you know, 16, but I'm not positive. I don't remember when I read it. I have no clear memory of when I read that book, which is really weird because most books I can kind of pinpoint around when I read it. I just know I did. But when I got to college, I reread it before I had it in any of my English classes. Actually, I reread it just for fun. And then I had it in, you know, classes and stuff, and I reread it just for fun beyond that. And then, you know, as I said, every couple of years I read it for most my 20s and 30s. And then now I've been on BookTube for you know, 6 years. I've read it almost every year for that. It is one of my favorites. I like it physically. I like it on audio. I love the 1995 adaptation. I like the 2005 for different reasons. It's really pretty and the music is awesome. Anyway, but the book itself is still my first love, which again is funny because the first time I'm reading, I can't recall, but I still have that book. I did upgrade all my copies to these Barnes & Noble ones that I got last year, just because mine were all mismatched. Signature classics. Anyway, so I just adore this book, and I think that's pretty obvious. I know a lot of people do, but really, this is my favorite book. I mean, as I said, there are other books I maybe reread a little bit more because they're more modern, but I still have read that. This is one of the books I've read the most in my life. This is the book I continue to think about, and I learn new things from it every time I read it, and I go, like, certain little nuances. I read the John Mullen book this year, What Matters in Jane Austen, and I caught a few more things that he kind of hinted at that are mentioned that I hadn't thought of. I'm still learning this novel. I still love this novel. I can't wait to reread it again next year, even though I just read it 2 weeks ago. It is my favorite novel of all time, and I don't think that's ever going to change. I mean, I want to have books that I like as much of that, but I really, really love this book. And I would say, you know, Persuasion is just slightly behind it. I think there's a few books maybe in between, but not very many. It's really close to being right next to it. And again, I love Jane Austen stuff. And I still, as I said, love participating in Jane Austen July every year because it gives me a good reason to reread this or listen to it or whichever I decide to do. So those are my rankings of the Jane Austen novels. I don't think, as I said, I haven't talked a lot about the bottom three because I don't read them or haven't reread them in a long time. But, you know, I don't really think the top was really that, like any surprises. I don't know. What do you think? So what do you think of my ranking? Do you think I need to give Emma another chance? I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I know I want to reread Mansfield Park, and Northanger Abbey, I want to do it with a different audio or physically next time. I still don't think I'm going to like it that much because of being a satire. But Mansfield Park, I definitely want to revisit. And again, I do love the rest of them, so we'll see what happens. So anyway, that's my ranking. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what your favorite Jane Austen novel is, or if there's anything you think I should rethink in my ranking, let me know. That's it. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.